Hi, I'm Jake Kouns, CEO of Risk-Based Security. Welcome to this edition of The Right Security, the show which we spend time talking with leaders and veterans in the security space, tackling the issues of the day. Today, I'm joined by Pete Herzog, Managing Director, Co-founder of ISECOM. Pete's that guy that you call when there's a security problem that standard products and like techniques just don't work. He's an analyst and a business guy, so he understands problems and how they need to be solved. But he's got that hacker mentality that really thinks outside the box. Pete, it's awesome to have you here. It reminds me, saying that reminds me of some exercises you've put some students through from some of your training classes. Does anything ring a bell about light bulbs and maybe 10 ways you have to turn them off?
Oh yeah, we still use that. Actually, we use it a lot. It's surprising how much you can build into people's idea of security by just making them think about breaking it. This is great. I have to say, I've been. It's great talking to you. It's been a long time. That's all I wanted to say.
No, I appreciate it. I was so excited. I interrupted you because I just remember when you started running exercises. Some people may do, oh, hey, you're in another room and, you have to figure out light switches and how do you do it? And not you, you're like, tell me 10 ways to turn off a light bulb. And after like 3 or 4, it starts getting into the absurdity. And then all of a sudden, the more absurd it gets, the more real it gets, right? And so I think some of those exercises that you've run people through is just absolutely awesome. So do me a favor. Why don't you start off telling us a little bit about ISECOM? I still, heck, you've been doing this for so long. I still feel like there are some people that just don't know what you've done. So why don't you give us a little flashback and history? Tell us about ISECOM, how it started, and sort of bring us up to speed on the organization.
Sure. Actually, it started when I wrote the OSSTMM, the OSTM, back in 2000. And it really took off. It was the open source security testing methodology manual. Horrible name. Had I known that it was going to be popular, I probably would have called it something cool like the Dragon. I don't know. But so we made that and it got really popular really fast. It led to me losing my job. So we decided to make our own thing, starting off of the OSTM, and that's where we built ISECOM from. And we started doing trainings, and so that was about 2002. So we were running with the OSTM for about 2 years, and me working on the side. I think a lot of open source projects work like that. And we took the dive. And we knew it was sink or swim, and we started doing trainings and building up more research and just kind of jumping into it. 2003, we started Hacker Highschool, which turns out the very first teen cybersecurity training ever. We worked with LaSalle University on that, trying to build it out. We had this crazy idea that we'd be able to bring this to schools everywhere and teach teachers and help them bring it out. And it turns out that the teachers didn't want anything to do with it. And it wasn't until about 2014 that even schools wanted anything to do with it, because most of the time we heard hacker's a bad word, because Hacker High School, and they felt guilty about bringing that into their school. They felt bad and they didn't think it would pass, and even if it was great. And it wasn't about till 2014. And we also realized that you couldn't teach teachers. They had enough on their plate. So we completely rewrote all the training material for the kids to be self-learning, like hackers do. And we put a real push on the whole resourcefulness and problem solving and being able to do this for yourself, which in turn was really good for the teens. We've been at this since 2000. It seems like a long time ago, but the security industry actually, I think the industry now is not much further than we were in about 2006, 2008. So.
Yeah, I sometimes I feel like it's a little bit of a broken record. Like we're saying the same things for the last 20 years. But this year has obviously been a crazy year with the pandemic. And I think, you and I talked earlier about some of the virtual schooling and cybersecurity challenges that that we were seeing and raising, and how we were trying to get through the school districts to make them aware of the situations. And just like you said, they've got so much going on as it is. To think about cybersecurity is tough. Now, we saw about, I'll say, 20 plus pretty substantial breaches or events happen to schools once they started to get back. Things relatively seem to be calming down a bit, although we sort of air quote this new virtual snow day. Seems to be when kids have had enough of being on Zoom all day long, they decided to, do a denial of service on their school district so they can get off school for the rest of the day. So we're still seeing some, odd things happening. But let's do this. I want to talk about Hacker High School a little bit later, but let's talk about kids and cybersecurity at home. Being in the cybersecurity world, I still personally find this a daunting task today, even with my 3 kiddos. So how do you actually recommend to parents that they can control what their kids do and see with their devices?
This is something I hear a lot, actually, and whenever we do conferences where we talk about this, it comes back again and again. For one, don't think you're going to outsmart the teens. That's not going to happen. Okay, they have help. Yeah, so all the teens are sharing this stuff with each other. They know what's going on. So don't do that. So I would say that the first thing you have to do is don't give them devices that can do all that much. I mean, that's really, I hear, oh, my kid is all day on their device. And I say, well, if you gave them an old phone where they could maybe hold 3-4 apps tops, this probably wouldn't happen. And that's the thing. You don't have to give them the brand newest, bestest thing. For one, what are you teaching them? That's the thing is I don't even have the newest technology in my office or on my desk. And, and what do I get? I get every 4 or 5 year turnaround on a laptop, maybe. And that's the truth of it, is that you don't have the latest, coolest thing. Not everybody has to be a consumer. I mean, you don't have to be, I don't know what you're trying to do, be emperor of the neighborhood with the latest, coolest devices, because it doesn't help you, and it definitely doesn't help your kids. They're not going to be able to get online better or get information faster, or it's just not going to happen. And if they have 200 gigabytes storage space on their phone right now at this time period, it's only going to lead to no good.
My question sort of, look, if you talk to parents, some parents say they just trust their kids, right? And so they're going to give them devices, and they raised them well, and they trust them to do the right things. I've come across quite a few others that say, kind of the general security principles that we go by: trust but verify, right? So they recommend, or they say that they do random audits, right? So they tell their kids, hey, I trust you, but I'm randomly going to take your phone and do an audit. But what are your sort of thoughts of being someone that's been in this well before anyone else about random audits, and what's, protecting your kids and trying to keep them safe versus should they have their own privacy? Where are some of your thoughts around these concepts?
This is a tough spot, because you are legally responsible for what your kids do as long as they're under 18. And even if they're over 18 and they're living in your house, you're probably somewhat legally responsible for them, if not in the letter of law, but the fact that they can't pay things if they have to, and it kind of falls on you as the parent. So no matter how you see it, you are responsible. The way we handle it is that I pulled open Wireshark. I showed my kids what I could see on the network, and I make completely clear constantly that the network is mine. And if they want to use the Wi-Fi, they have to follow the rules. And I have no problem just shutting off Wi-Fi in the house if it needs to make a statement. And believe me, yes, it can cause trouble sometimes. And there's arguments, to say nicely, about this kind of thing. But the truth is, it's my network. I maintain it. I control it. And now my 2 older kids have bought phones of their own. They have for quite a few years now. They have, and we force them to work for it, and they have to earn it so that they get what they want. So they have some autonomy over it, and I like them to have that. On the other hand, so for the younger kids, I make it very clear that there's logs on their computer, and I have no problem showing them when they say, no, I wasn't playing for 2 hours. I could say, oh, look, let me show you where it says you've been playing for more than 2 hours. And these are the kinds of things I do. It's not really audits. It's more letting them know that they are tracked. My Wi-Fi network, we use Ubiquity, which don't know why I'm shouting it out there. It's just I'm so happy we have a network that works, because I've been fighting with Wi-Fi, I think, since forever. But since we put that in the house, I have a lot more control over it. So I can even show them how long they've been connected to it, what kind of traffic that they've generated. And again, I'm not policing them. I'm letting them know that if they lie to me or lie to themselves, I can show them. And usually that's the end of any argument, saying, well, let's look at your phone. Let's see what apps you've been on. And then they say no, and they say, no, I don't want to. And I say, okay, well, I can look at it on Wi-Fi. It'll show me what apps you were using, what calls you were making. And then they, no, this is, and I tell them, listen, you might not want me to know, but I'm only doing this for your own good. I'm doing this so that you get things accomplished. Does it always work? No. I mean, these are teenagers, they're smart, they're capable. And I also know that in this world, they already have coping mechanisms for things that you at our age have no idea what they even have to cope with. We didn't have cyberbullying. We didn't have our parents posting our pictures everywhere on the internet, or our family members, our relations. We didn't have to worry about friends taking a still out of a video where we look stupid and then posting that as if it's a photo of us. They have to deal with all sorts of things, and their ways of dealing with it might seem counterintuitive, but it's really not. So, for example, what do you do if you're in all the databases because your parents signed you up for things, your school's like, oh, you have to use Google this, you have to use Microsoft that, you have to have an account here, an account there for this ebook, that, and they force them to have accounts everywhere well, you have kids, for everything. It's crazy because it's all free. And so, yes, they can't have privacy. So what do? They have 17 Instagram accounts, and 16 of them you don't know about. And the thing is that that's how they keep track of their friends and their their secrets and who they want to tell. And that's how they control their privacy, by not being the same person everywhere.
Makes sense. Do you get a lot of parents asking you questions? Because, some of the things that you said, you dropped Wireshark and a couple other things where I'm sure some non-technical people watching would say, well, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to show logs. I don't know. So do you get sort of, parents that mean well, that are worried, that ask you questions like, how do I protect my kids from bad things on the internet? Does that get asked to you often? And how do you, if so, how do you respond in a way that, non-technical parents can sort of understand or take action?
Yeah, this gets kind of tough because if they're non-technical, okay, what their kids are probably doing is usually non-technical as well. And then it's just a matter of, telling them, if you really have a problem, a trust issue, take away the phone from your kid, or take away the computer, or put it in a public space. That's really the only thing you can do. I mean, is there software out there? Yeah, but the teens all talk about how to remove it. They know how to get around it. There's, they know game cheats and hacks. They're going to figure out security hacks for this kind of stuff. I mean, we know as security people that if it's local, if the security is local, you can fight it. I mean, you have access to the computer, you can overcome it. So they figure this stuff out as well. There's not much you can do there. But one way we try to guide the parents is say, okay, why don't you get your kids in a class about cyber safety? Let them know what other people are capable of. So this thing that I'm telling you about, look at logs. I can look at the logs. When we teach this to teenagers, we say, hey, look what you just did. Now here you open this log and you can see it has a time list of everything you just did on your computer that anybody, the police, your parents, anybody could see if they wanted to. There's software out there that would dig it out, I'm sure. And when the teens see that, they realize that they can get caught. So we can elevate them to a point where they're technically knowledgeable enough to know how they can get caught. But of course, they're still years away from figuring out how to get around that, how to actually be anonymous.
Gotcha. All right. It was interesting when you were talking earlier about, the word hacker and how that still has some negative association, maybe not as bad as it was, but when do you think is an appropriate age or grade level to start teaching kids security concepts? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think appropriate is around 6 to 7 years old. We start teaching them lock picking. You'd be amazed at how dexterous they are. And it really puts into their head the idea that locks are not permanent. Locks are not the end. As a matter of fact, we had an incident this summer because we started locking up the TV to make sure that our kids got their homework done remotely, right? So they were schooled from home, and so I got a lock for the outlet, right, for the TV, so they couldn't plug it in. And sure enough, they picked it because they know how to pick locks, and it's something that I make sure my kids learn from conferences and stuff. And the thing is I wasn't mad about that. I was actually happy that they did it, but I was angry that they were defiant enough to go around. So what they understand now about locks is that it means I don't want you in there. It's not about that somebody can't get through it. It just says, stay out, please. That it's, and I think that really puts an awareness from when they're little on that it's more about respecting somebody's security than actually having a barrier to security. And they realize this later because you see this as they get older and they have bike locks and they're like, how can I lock my bike so that somebody can't break through it? And they start thinking in terms of layers and it really changes their mindset so that even when they start going on computers and getting phones and things like that, they're completely aware of the fact that they are not truly safe, that it's all about somebody respecting their security, which is why they're secure.
Oh, that makes total sense. I think you and I have talked and seen some other folks close to us at conferences talk about locks being more of a social construct versus actually keeping you out and things like that are always fascinating. Do you there's a lot of people sometimes when you talk about teaching your kids to pick locks, they're probably gasping at that right now going, oh my goodness, I can never think about doing that. Right. So when people suggest that, hey, you shouldn't be teaching your kids that kind of stuff because you're arming them to be evil or that they may choose these skills to be, bad and things like that. How do you sort of respond to that? I know you just, a little bit told us that, but is there more that you would say to them about that?
I don't think it's bad that anybody knows how to pick locks because as you get older, you're very aware of the social construct. You also become aware, once you know how to do it, you also know you can't unpick a lock. So for example, if you pick a door open, it's going to be open and now you're going to have to tell people that you opened that door because it was locked before and now it's not. Okay, so unpicking a lock, very hard to do. And this kind of idea gets with them that then there's responsibility, there's accountability to what you do. On one side, I don't have a problem with my kids knowing because who knows if they get abducted, if something horrible happens, at least they have these skills that lockpicking isn't just about breaking open a lock or getting through a lock. It's about problem solving. It's here I have this complicated puzzle and I need to figure out what I can do about it. And, again, you're not instilling criminal behavior. What you're instilling is accountability, if anything, because how do you, like I said, how do you get around the fact that you did open a door, and now it's open, now it's unlocked. What are you going to do? So I think nothing promotes honesty like the ability to understand how vulnerable we all are.
I think that's really well said. All right, so let's do this. Let's talk a little bit about Hacker High School, because I do think everything we're talking about now, it is a different way to get people to think. It's analytical skills, it's problem solving skills. Exactly to your point, thinking about way things are vulnerable to help improve them. There's all kinds of stuff on this. So let's start a little bit with, what is Hacker High School?
Well, first I want to ask you, have you taught any of this stuff to your kids? I know you have kids. Do you teach them lockpicking? Do you teach them concepts?
I do. I know you can't see behind me, but I've got the lockpick all set up with the various things, and so yeah, I've been teaching them lockpicking, and they're big into gaming now, so they're asking all these questions. I will tell you, one of the funniest things now is anytime they lose in a video game, they're like, "He's hacking. That guy's hacking." Like, so it's this default now in some ways. When something happens that they don't like, it's someone's hacking, right? So it's eye-opening to see some of how they process these things.
Yeah, that's something actually I noticed as well with games, is that they actually come to you and they say, "Is there a way you can hack this so I can get all the diamonds or all the credits or whatever it is?" And so I did. I showed them that, okay, this is how you would do it. And the moment you do this, now I broke the integrity on this file, which means you can no longer connect online to play this game, because they check these things. They want to make sure that people don't cheat. And then that starts whole other conversations. And I mean, this is really what Hacker High School is about, is educating them in this way that they realize how they fit into the context of this world, how security fits into the context of this world. Because I think, okay, so one of the things that we did for Hacker High School is we really looked into how children learn. And this actually was interesting because it helped me now. We started recently a new company. I started with 4 other guys called Irvin AI, where we do artificial intelligence, and we're teaching a system to read and comprehend what it reads. And it's really interesting because a lot of the stuff we learned for Hacker High School on comprehension, how children learn, really apply to how you're teaching AI. And I mean AI, not machine learning, where you're actually building algorithmic constructs of how to read something, how to understand what you read in a mathematical sense. And this all fits the same way. And it all starts from the same thing, is context. So you, for instance, if you go to a party or you go to a dinner and you sit down and everybody's talking about home runs and, man, he hit it out of the park, you as an average person are probably going to think baseball, However, you don't know the context. You don't know what they're talking about, to be honest. And you have to listen for a little while and try to figure out what it is that they're really talking about. Because imagine you sit down and you jump in and you say, "Oh, you guys talking about the Yankees game or the Braves or whatever," and then they, "No, we're talking about court case he just won," and this is context. And everybody goes through it, and this is how you learn as children in order to comprehend things. So in order to do reading comprehension or any kind of learning comprehension, it requires you having context of the world. And I don't know, most people don't realize this, but this is why you have to. I think there's some grades, maybe 4th, 5th, 6th grade, where they make you read the newspaper every day, and they try to give you more culture and try to show you more about the world, because comprehension comes from context of the world around you. If you don't know those things, you can't do it. And it's the same thing with Hacker High School. Once we started realizing that what the kids were missing is not access to technology, and because they had that, and we weren't teaching them how to use their computer better. We weren't teaching them really how to use their phones better. These are all things they probably knew better than us with every new technology that would come out. But what we could do is give them context. So again, not knowing that if I break if I break this file, that now they can no longer work online with the server will no longer accept it because the integrity is broken. They don't understand the concept or the context of integrity, or why you would check that to make sure that somebody isn't cheating. And so there's all of this context you give them. We teach them about all of these controls. But again, it all comes down to giving them the right context. So we used to joke saying it was that expression, a little bit of knowledge can be dangerous, but a little bit of more, and it makes them realize where they fit into this. It makes them less dangerous. Okay, it doesn't mean they still can't do it. It just means that they've learned not to do it. They won't do it. So, I mean, I don't know if this is something you've seen, but giving this kind of context in anything they learn, giving them the big picture before they start. And I have to tell you, in technology, most people, even professionals, are missing the big picture. It's crazy. But I don't know if this is something you've seen as well.
Yeah, I mean, the big picture, or just trying to understand the problem before you jump in trying to solution things, is I think it happens even to seasoned professionals, without a doubt. Well, I know that, from what I've seen at Hacker High School, I thought it was really well done, broken into these lessons or modules, if you will, that could really help people, I think, not just understand security and how to protect themselves, but again, that mindset about how to solve problems and those kinds of things. So, I'm surprised in some ways, maybe not in others, that Hacker High School hasn't gotten further into schools, and maybe even, instead of just being called Hacker High School, getting it down into maybe the secondary and elementary schools. So how do you, if someone's watching this right now, how do they go about getting Hacker High School into their kids, or in kids' school, or maybe even introducing this to faculty to consider?
That's a good question. Well, first, I have to say Hacker High School is extremely popular. It's in many schools. Since any teacher can just grab our lessons, they can just buy our books, and they can bring into their classroom. They don't have to tell us. But from what we've been able to tell, we get 300,000 downloads a month of our lessons alone. And I just know from book sales in huge batches out to schools. I see translations being done in many places. So I know it's in thousands of school, if not tens of thousands. It is definitely out there. It's being used widely. Any teacher who wants to, they can go to the hackerhighschool.org website. They can grab the lessons, take a look at it. Then we have the books. They're sold on demand through Amazon directly. And of course, some schools ask us if they can do bulk orders. That's something else that we can work on. But the books, it's all there for the kids to teach themselves. So the teachers just have to proctor it. The homeschooling parents just have to proctor it, make sure that the kids read it, that they talk about it. And even if you know nothing about cybersecurity, you can actually just have the kids talk about it amongst themselves and share their details. Our flagship school in Hawaii, I think they're going into our 5th or 6th year this year. And they were hugely popular. I think out of 30 kids, 28 of them got scholarships to cybersecurity in college by graduation after doing 4 years. And I went to visit the first graduating class, and they were brilliant. I have to say, I felt as if they were equals, and we're talking about 17-year-olds here. They had learned so much because, of course, Hacker High School is not based on this cyber safety stuff, this watered down. It's actually based on the OSTEM. It's based on real security documentation that professionals use. So nothing's watered down. It's just how we teach it to them through narrative, through exercises. That makes the difference for teenagers. I mean, they're sponges. They pick it all up. So when I actually got to the class in Hawaii, they greeted me with 2.5 whiteboards full of doxing on my life. So they spent a week just doxing me. Yeah. And they were about 2/3 right, I have to say. So I don't know if I credit myself for hiding well or but no, they did a really, really good job. And they knew what they were doing, me talking to them. And of course, they had all the questions that kids have, like, did you ever do anything illegal? Did you ever, go to jail? Did you ever, And I find if you're just honest with the kids and you tell them and they know what's what, I mean, this is huge for them, and it can really change them. So I think any teacher, all you have to do is proctor them. Again, these were kids who went through 4 years of it with I think one extra after school every week for 4 years is basically what they had. So a 2-hour after school, could be wrong, could have been like an hour and a half, but they did the homework, and they would go to class and they would just explain to each other, what their answers were and why they got it. And it was very meritocracy, that we know in IT and security. So again, a teacher or a parent doesn't have to be a hacker or a cybersecurity specialist to, and a lot of teachers have said they've learned along with the kids, that the things that they had never known. So anybody can get into it. It's very easy. Like I said, the lessons, we have partial lessons out there online. The books are obviously fuller. They're meant, it's funny, we're going to do all online. It's the schools who ask for books because for them, it was easier to get a curriculum passed if they had books than with PDFs that they would have to print. So, but it's all there. I mean, you do it from home. You don't need anything special other than a computer. I mean, that's a part of being a hacker, is figuring out how you get done what you need to get done. But it's really life-changing for the kids. I see it myself. I mean, I brought up my own kids through it. My 17-year-old did a cybersecurity internship this year, at the beginning of the year. They went through the class. By the way, we have a class coming up in November, and we're going to keep rolling out these online classes. I would say at least one a month, if not more, in different time zones, where you can just 2 hours a day for 2 weeks. You get an instructor, and we're trying to price it like summer camp pricing, something easy. But it's really just enroll your kid. They're going to be shown demos. They're going to be told the stories. They're going to get the how many ways do you know to shut off this light, and all those other little tricks. And I mean, it's extremely engaging for kids. It really is. I mean, they see and learn things. I got, after my son, he's 14. After he took the course, I think back in March, Quinnipiac University put one on, and I thought, because my kid's never going to sit through something I do, so I asked if he could sit through their course, and they taught him. And of course, it was no time at all before I got my first phishing email from him that he used. Using some toolkit, but again, it was all about them learning. It was really incredible.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, man, I could talk to you about this for hours. I think it's fascinating. We'll definitely in the notes we'll put all the links to everything. So everything that you've referenced from what you're doing at ISECOM, the Hacker Highschool, we'll throw that all in there. But before we wrap up, you're like one of those guys that has your hands in everything. I know you got a new company going on. You got all kinds of things going on. You got anything last minute you want to plug before we wrap up the show?
Most recently, we did 2 new things. One, we started up a prototyping company in Myanmar because of the one of the guys from Hacker Highschool, actually, who was helping us with translate lessons in the Burmese. I ended up needing some help, and he'd been learning all the Hacker Highschool stuff, and I hired him back in January, and we needed some prototyping work, and he started hiring devs. And I thought, this is great, and so they have a growing business. I'm just a co-founder. I'm not really any more than that, an advisor, but he's gone from Hacker Highschool to growing his own business. He's got a bunch of devs. They're growing it further. They do prototyping, development, just really easy stuff. If you want to see an app, but you don't want to spend more than $500, they're the people you talk to. So I think that's really great, especially since I don't know if you know anything about the labor laws there, but they're pretty strict. They work 6 to 7 days a week. So we're trying to turn IT on its head. They work 5 days a week. They get all their holidays off. We're trying to hire mostly women to make sure, because there's unequal wages there. So we're really trying to use IT to help make it a better place. So if you're looking for prototyping, you can find it there. And the other thing we just started doing is AI music. So that's a whole other thing that I'm into. I always liked music. I'm not much of a musician, but using AI to help make better music and help amateur musicians get on stage is really what it's all about for me.
Sounds good. Well, Pete, I appreciate it. It's great seeing you. It's been far too long. Looking forward to getting back in person and seeing you. For anyone that hasn't followed Pete, you can just Google Pete Herzog. We'll put some links in there. This guy has some amazing writing and some pieces. So with that, thank you, and look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks, Jake. Yeah, I look forward to it too. Take care.